You know that saying, no good deed goes unpunished? I learned that the hard way. For 3 years I worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid well enough and I was good at it. My co-workers were mostly fine. A mix of overworked professionals and underqualified interns trying to climb the ladder. But the real problem? My boss Jason. Jason was one of those managers who thrived on chaos. He was charming in meetings and completely useless behind the scenes. He loved to throw around buzzwords like synergy and ownership, but the moment anything went wrong he'd deflect blame faster than you could blink. Somehow I ended up being his safety net. It started small. A few months after I joined, Jason forgot to submit an important client proposal. When the deadline hit, he panicked and begged me to help salvage it. I stayed late, rewrote half the pitch deck and got it sent out just in time. He got all the credit. He thanked me privately though, said, "You're a real team player, Sarah." Back then I thought it was a compliment. Over time it became routine. Someone would miss their task or Jason would accidentally double book meetings and I'd be the one fixing it. I didn't even realize how much extra work I was doing until I found myself clocking out 2, sometimes 3 hours later than everyone else. It wasn't just about being helpful. I actually cared about the projects. If I didn't pick up the slack, clients would suffer. And that mattered to me maybe too much. But Jason noticed. And not in a good way. Instead of appreciating me, he started depending on me, exploiting that sense of responsibility. He'd dump last-minute tasks on my desk with a casual, "You're the only one I trust to get it done right." Flattery disguised as manipulation. Things really started to spiral earlier this year, when we landed a massive campaign with a luxury skincare brand. It was the biggest client the firm had signed in years, and everyone was on edge trying to impress them. Jason promised the client a full marketing rollout in 6 weeks. Digital ads, print designs, influencer partnerships, the works. Totally unrealistic. Guess who ended up coordinating all of it? Me. Half the design team was new and still learning the company systems. The social media manager was constantly working from home, which apparently meant going to the gym at 2 p.m. And Jason? He was busy networking, taking long lunches with potential clients and bragging about his leadership skills. By week 4 I was exhausted. I'd been working weekends, answering emails past midnight, and juggling more spreadsheets than one person should ever see in a lifetime. Then one morning I got an email that made my jaw drop. The client had written directly to Jason, C&G me, saying they were concerned about delays in deliverables and wanted to ensure the team was being managed efficiently. Jason's reply? "Thanks for the feedback. Sarah's been leading this project. I'll make sure she stays on top of it." He threw me under the bus in one sentence. I remember just staring at my screen in disbelief. I'd been breaking my back to hold the project together, and instead of backing me up he shifted the blame to me. That's when something inside me started to change. Still, I didn't want to react impulsively. I decided to document everything. Every message, every time I had to fix someone else's mistake, every last-minute task Jason dumped on me. Then came the meeting that broke me completely. 2 days before the client presentation, Jason called me into his office. He had that fake professional smile plastered on his face. "Sarah," he said, "I've been getting some feedback from upper management. They're concerned you're struggling with teamwork." I blinked. "Excuse me." He nodded like he was delivering some profound truth. "You're very capable, no doubt about that. But I've noticed you tend to work independently. You take on too much instead of trusting your colleagues. It gives off the impression that you're not a team player." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man who dumped everyone else's responsibilities on me was now accusing me of not being a team player. I asked him to give me an example. He said, "Well, when the social media team missed their content upload last week, you redid it yourself instead of letting them handle the consequences. That's not collaboration, that's control." It took every ounce of self-control not to laugh in his face. He ended the meeting with his favorite corporate cliché. "Remember, teamwork makes the dream work." I walked out of that room shaking with anger. For the first time I saw the full picture clearly. I wasn't being valued. I was being used. So I made a decision right then and there. If Jason thought I wasn't a team player, fine. I'd stop being one. The next morning I showed up at work and did only what was explicitly assigned to me. Nothing more. No last-minute fixes, no covering for late coworkers, no saving Jason from his poor planning. When the social media manager missed her post deadline again, I said, "Oh, I assumed Jason would handle that." When the designers didn't finalize their mock-ups, I didn't stay late to polish them. I just let things fall exactly as they were supposed to, messy, chaotic, and unfiltered. By the end of the week, the campaign files were incomplete. The client was expecting a presentation Monday morning, and half the deliverables weren't even ready. Jason didn't realize it yet, but he was walking straight into a disaster. And I was done saving him. Monday morning rolled around like a storm cloud. The big client presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m., and the entire office was buzzing. People were printing last-minute reports, the designers were still tweaking slides, and Jason, as usual, was strolling around with his coffee, pretending to be calm and in control. But I knew the truth. Half the campaign was unfinished. The influencer contracts hadn't been finalized, the digital ads weren't properly formatted, and the analytics section of the pitch deck, The part Jason usually begged me to tighten up hadn't even been started. And for the first time in my career I didn't care. At 9:45, Jason waved at me from his office door. "Sarah, you're coming to the presentation, right?" I smiled politely. "Of course." He grinned, probably assuming I'd spent the weekend cleaning up the mess as usual. He had no idea I'd gone home Friday night and didn't open my laptop once. When we walked into the conference room, the client's team was already seated. Sharp suits, notebooks out, polite smiles that hid high expectations. Jason started with his usual spiel about innovation and collaboration. Then he clicked to the first slide of the presentation deck. And froze. Half the images were missing. The captions were placeholders. The analytics charts were blank. He blinked rapidly, clicked to the next slide, and that one was worse. A big red file not found message where the social media preview should have been. You could feel the air in the room tighten. Jason gave this awkward little laugh and said, "Well, looks like we're having some technical issues." He turned to me, eyes wide, silently begging for rescue. But I didn't move. I just looked at him calmly and said, "That's the file your team sent me on Friday." I assumed it was final. For a few seconds he looked like a man realizing the floor was giving way beneath him. The client wasn't impressed. One of their executives leaned back in his chair and said flatly, "If this is the quality of your internal organization, I'm not sure how confident we can be in your execution." Jason stumbled through the rest of the meeting trying to improvise. It was painful to watch, but honestly it was overdue. When it finally ended, the clients thanked us politely and left, clearly unimpressed. As soon as the door closed, Jason rounded on me. "What the hell was that, Sarah?" he snapped. I raised an eyebrow. "That was your team's work, Jason. You said I needed to stop taking over and trust others, remember?" He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You could have at least checked the files." "Oh, I could have," I said calmly. "But that's not my responsibility anymore, right?" I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. For once he didn't have a comeback. He stormed back to his office, slamming the door behind him. I went back to my desk, opened my email and quietly started putting my next plan into motion. Because while Jason was panicking, I was ready to be done. Over the past few weeks, while documenting everything, I'd compiled a folder. Emails, time-stamped messages, screenshots of him assigning me tasks that weren't mine, messages where he shifted blame, and reports of him taking credit for my work in meetings. It was a neat, chronological package labeled teamwork. That afternoon, I sent it to HR and upper management, along with a professional note. Following recent feedback about my teamwork, I wanted to provide context on how tasks and responsibilities have been distributed within our department. I believe this information will clarify the current challenges our team has been facing. Then I logged out and went home early. The next day HR called me in. They thanked me for the documentation. Apparently, several coworkers had quietly complained about Jason too, but none of them had proof. My email had opened the floodgates. The investigation took 2 weeks. During that time I did my job, nothing more. I came in, completed my assigned tasks and left on time. No overtime, no covering for others. And you know what? The office didn't collapse. People started stepping up because they had to. It turns out when you stop shielding lazy coworkers and manipulative bosses, they're forced to face their own incompetence. Then came the meeting. HR summoned both Jason and me. He walked in looking deflated, eyes tired, jaw clenched. The HR manager asked him about the client fiasco, the task mismanagement, the complaints, the workload distribution. Jason tried to spin it. "Sarah's just strong-willed. She likes to take control." I was trying to help her be more collaborative. The HR manager slid the folder I'd compiled across the table. "We've reviewed her documentation. It clearly shows you've been delegating tasks outside her role and taking credit for her work. That's not collaboration, that's exploitation." Jason went pale. They dismissed me first, but I lingered just long enough to hear the words. "We'll be discussing your employment status effective immediately." When I got back to my desk, people were whispering. By the end of the day, Jason had cleared out his office. He was gone. Management sent out a memo thanking him for his contributions and announcing they'd be restructuring the department. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly what had happened. The following week, HR offered me an interim promotion, acting department lead, while they looked for a replacement. I accepted, but only temporarily. I'd already made up my mind. 3 months later, I handed in my resignation. It wasn't out of anger. I just didn't want to spend another minute in a company that allowed people like Jason to thrive until someone like me had to burn out to fix it. Before I left, my new manager pulled me aside and said, "I heard about what you did, quietly letting things fall apart so the truth came out." That was bold. I smiled and said, "Sometimes you have to stop saving people from the consequences they create." He nodded slowly. "Still, you must have felt a bit bad watching him fail like that, right?" I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. No, not really. Because the truth is, I didn't ruin Jason's career. He did that himself. I just stopped being his safety net.